Here we go.
We're
All
live.
right. Good afternoon. We're coming live to you today to share some information about preschool programs, preschool readiness, and transition from Holly Ridge Services when your child is getting ready to turn 3. I have 2 guests with me today. I have Jessica Aubin from Aubin Aphasia, and I have Amy Friedman. She is a developmental preschool teacher at Blakely Elementary School. And so she has lots of great information to share with us today about preschool. So welcome. And if you're joining us live today, we're so glad you're here, and hopefully you'll get some good information.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alicia, for those introductions. I always love doing these with you. I think they're so fun. And it's great to be able to connect families with information about what is available in our community. So fabulous to have you here, Amy. So and our theme today, we're going to talk about transitions. So your child is turning 3. Now, what are you going to do? So, Amy, we have our big topic of the day is about, at 3 is a time when a lot of kids start entering preschool. So we want to talk a little bit about what factors should parents consider when thinking about sending their child to a preschool program.
Well, there's so many things that go into it. For one, I mean, how often is their child able to separate from them? Are they able to leave them with the sitter or leave them at a play date at another little friend's house? And then, it really just depends on the dynamic of how their parent and what they're comfortable with, because there are so many different levels of preschool. And I'm talking in the general population with typical peers. Kid just turns 3. If the parent's really involved and they kind of part of them have a concern with being the separated, dropping them off and leaving, and the child has a problem, there are cooperative preschools that are very, very good. And the Island Co-op preschool is very good. There is another one. I'm just saying, I'm not going to I shouldn't, they're all really good programs. So I'm just
that type of preschool.
All the programs are really good, but there are programs like that.
For example, right?
For example, exactly.
There are many.
Exactly.
And we will include a list of all of the many options throughout Kitsap County after this.
Exactly.
But this is an example of a cooperative.
It's a good stepping stone. It's a good place to get your feet wet. You're in there as a parent, you're working, you're rotating stations. You get to meet other families, you get to work with the teacher, and you're kind of teaching too, and you're getting to work with other kids. And I did it with both of my kids when they were little, and I loved it. But then when I went back to work part-time, I needed more. And so then I had my kids go to a community preschool, and they were ready. But there's so many things you need to think about too. So I work, in the developmental preschool at Blakely, and we take kids who qualify on an IEP. And now we also have typical peers where the parents are paying tuition.
Sorry, I want to ask you a quick question to clarify. Not all of our families might know what an IEP is. Can you just let them know what that means?
So we screen kids every month throughout the school year. And when you take your child to the doctor for their checkup and you have some concerns, they'll say, well, what are your concerns? And they might be, he's very frustrated easily. He's screaming, he's tantruming a lot, he or she, or, they're not communicating. And so what the first step is, they recommend their child to go through a preschool screening, which we do as a district, and we do them once a month. And so our coordinator sets up visits.
Do other districts do this too?
Yes, they do. And so our coordinator sets up visits, and the parents get to come in, and we screen their motor, we screen their speech, we screen their social emotional growth. We screen their pre-academics, kind of like, are they able to listen to a direction? Are they able to attend by, if you answer them a question? So all of these things are really important as a first, getting eyes on the kid. And then if we see that there's any kind of big red flags, then we're going to say, okay, we need to evaluate them.
So does it cost money to have your child screened in
Nope,
a public
nope.
school district?
It doesn't cost a thing. And it's completely free. And
Oh,
so,
an evaluation through the public school district.
nope, that's completely covered. I mean, we want to child find. I mean, we need to meet all those needs out there with those kids. Not everyone is aware of it either. So, I've had students that would come in when they were like 6 and they hadn't had preschool, and some of the families known about the screening process and our program and how it's fully funded. They could definitely benefit from it. So, but just so going backpedaling to what I was saying, that's how a kid gets to qualify. So once they get evaluated and the evaluation finds that they are significantly, they call it 2 standard deviations below the mean in a certain area, then they qualify to have an IEP and they qualify for the developmental preschool. It could be in autism. It could be in physical motor delays. It could be in speech delays. It's just a wide range of all different kids learn differently.
Yeah.
And they can all be eligible for services if they qualify. Once they qualify, we have an evaluation. And from that evaluation, those areas where they qualify in, this is how we devise the IEP. So it's an individualized educational plan for the child. So I've had students that have had social emotional needs and speech delays. So what do? I have goals to help that child with their social emotional growth. A lot of it could be peer interaction skills, taking turns, waiting, boundaries, self-regulation, speech. As you know, like Jessica, you can talk about what is a speech goal for a preschooler.
Oh, Alicia could talk about this too. Right.
So so all of these goals will help. And then in addition to the kids who are on IEPs, we have 6 to 7 peer models in each session. There are 2 sessions of preschool. They're Thursday in my program. It's Tuesday through Friday, and there's 2 sessions. And so a lot of the kids, we used to just have a couple peer models in a session when we started doing this in 2010, and now it's half and half, which is fantastic.
Ooh,
that's great.
That is a great ratio. That is wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about, so how long is the class? So you have 2 sessions. So how long would this session be? And
yeah, sorry, the camera thing. So my class is in Wilkes and Blakely are the 2 developmental preschools on Bainbridge Island, and they also have one in North Kitsap, and I believe they have one in Central Kitsap as well. Our programs on Bainbridge Island go Tuesday through Friday. From the first session is from 7:50 in the morning when all the kids arrive until 10:20, and then there's a break, and then the afternoon session starts at 11:45, and it dismisses when school is out at 2:20. So there are 2 sessions, and each session, for example, I'm starting this fall, I'm going to have 10 kids in each session. 6 of them are peer models in my morning. 4 of the students are going to have IEPs, and the same goes for my afternoon.
Great.
Nice.
And I have 2 paraprofessionals who work with me. So the ratio is really supported. I have, 3 adults in there all the time. In addition to that, I have our speech therapist that comes in and pushes in when we're doing instruction to work with the students who have speech goals. But the beauty of it is she works with all the kids. So if there's a typical peer in there who might have some speech
Articulation.
delays, artic. We have all the eyes on these kids. So they're definitely going to have that
Give me a
support.
little boost.
Yeah. Um, so anyway, that's just a little bit about our program. But like I said, going back to if the kid's ready or if the kid's not ready, there's
Amy,
so many different ways. There's so many different opportunities out there.
oh, so many different opportunities.
So many.
There are lots of different opportunities. But in the developmental preschools in all of the districts in Kitsap County, those kids have access to speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, counseling services, and of course, teacher services from credentialed teachers who are licensed and certified too.
Well, the nice thing is because we're in a school and it's an elementary school, it's the best way, I think, to prepare all the kids for kindergarten. Because we get to go to art class with the art teacher, and we get to go to music class once in a while, and we get to go to the library with the librarian. And so they're learning they're learning how to walk in a line in a school, and they get to see the kindergartners walking in a line. And so there's modeling going on all different levels. And when there's an assembly for like it's different now with COVID, but when I was working at Ordway, when the developmental preschool was at Ordway, we'd always take them to the assemblies with the singing, and the kids loved it. And they're watching and they're seeing how everybody's listening and everyone's sitting, and people would be, oh gosh, I don't know how my kid's going to do in the assembly. And they do surprisingly well because they are watching and looking and learning from their classmates.
And all those big kids.
And all those big kids. So sorry, just keep asking questions. That's easier.
So I'm just wondering, so if I have a child and I want them to go to your developmental preschool and they don't have an IEP, how do I register them, or how do I get information about that?
Yeah, how does that work?
We almost might be currently full, but if you go onto the Bainbridge Island School District website, there is a link. It's for preschool, I believe. And we are in the process. We just hired a new preschool coordinator and school psychologist. So that person would be the go-to person for connecting families into the program. If the family lives in the north end of Bainbridge Island and there's a space, they would connect them with the Wilkes School. If they live kind of close to the south end, they would connect them with me on the south end. Yeah.
Right. How big does your class get?
I have had as many as 13 or 14 students in a class. And when that happens, especially because we need to keep these spaces for our caseload. That's why we can only have up to 7 kiddos in a class. So we need to make sure that we have room for our kids with IEPs. And we might have some kids with significant needs, and they might need extra support. So I would probably get more support. And so I've had 2 or 3 years when I was working at Ordway where I had 3 paras working with me.
Okay. Yeah. And we do have a question about South Kitsap does not have a program. Actually, all of the school districts in Kitsap County and also North Mason have developmental preschool programs. How they're configured and how, if they have peers, it kind of depends on the different school districts, but they all have developmental preschool programs.
Yeah, they all do. And so you would just reach out. You could reach out to almost anyone in the district and they'd connect you with the appropriate counselor who would set you up with an evaluation or to determine the needs of your child. Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned, Amy, that if your child is a peer model in a developmental preschool, that there is a cost associated with it.
Okay, I don't have the numbers right now, but it's pretty comparable. It's pretty comparable to the other community preschools. I know that.
I feel like in the back of my head, that it's pretty comparable, but potentially a little bit less even than other preschools.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think I remember this from research back in the day. I'm sure things have changed. Not to say that other private preschools are not, wonderful places to put your child. And some of the benefits of a private preschool probably would be the class size and teacher ratio and the, sometimes having something that the family's more familiar with is really helpful. If it's been a place where other siblings have gone, sometimes that's comforting to the family. So I have a quick question about besides, so we were talking a little bit about other besides developmental preschools, the other programs. Is there ever a time when a family would not want to put their child in preschool?
Yeah.
What would that?
Well, in a community preschool, I think there's many things you need to think about. You just need to be very aware of how much support does my child need. I want my child to have a good experience. I want my child to be successful. So there's so many great programs out there, but not all of them have the ratio of support that we would have in our preschool. But some of them do have a great amount of support. But it's always important to think about the child, and it's always good to ask questions before and research the program before signing your child to go there. And I know parents are great. They do that and it's awesome. But it's important to ask the kind of questions like when you're looking at the community preschool is to ask them what does the classroom look like? What would is if my child gets frustrated or if they're nervous and there's some sensory, will there be a place for him or her to go? Will there be somebody that could work with my child and just working on extra skills? And a lot of them do these things, but it just doesn't have the amount of adults. A lot of them don't have the amount of adults. However, I'm going to say this because on the flip side, I just want to say this because this is really important. We've had kids in our program who they come in and they're really quiet and they're really, really, really shy. And they come out of their shell and they meet their goals and they get exited from their IEP. And the families say, well, now what? Can we do, so they might be maybe the child's 5 years old, right? So they might not be ready to go to kindergarten yet. And this is where I would say, put them in a community preschool. Put them in, they can do kindergarten and community preschool, or they can just spend a year in community preschool, and they could start late. So they might not qualify to stay in the program anymore. But I would definitely push for a community preschool so they can have as many typical peers and that experience before they're ready to go to kindergarten. So it's just that it's like that other close to pre-K. It's very close to being like pre-K, a lot of these programs.
Amy, have you ever had families that do both the developmental preschool and another preschool?
Yes.
How does that work out?
It works out really well if the kid is ready.
Okay, so what would be a reason why they might not be ready for that?
Sorry. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to shut it down. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Can you ask that question again?
Yeah, I'll ask that question one more time. So how did the families that did both the developmental preschool and a private preschool or private services in addition to what they were getting in the developmental preschool, how did that work out for the families?
It, like I said, it depends. Okay, it depends if the kid's ready.
Mhm.
Sometimes I would suggest like how working with them, supporting them, and having them work out their toolbox and their skills for, like, let's say, self-regulation and peer interaction skills, building that, I think, before putting them into both programs would be better and not so overwhelming. Sometimes, when a student just qualifies, and it just depends on the need, it depends how significant the need is. I've had kids that start out with both programs, and it's great. It really just depends on the need of the child. And if
And
the child has real significant needs, then you might want to just first get those goals met first and work and then grow from there, as
Mhm.
opposed to just bam, putting them into both programs.
And I got this question earlier today about a family was wondering, they have a typical peer model and they're trying to decide how many hours a day or how many hours a week of preschool would be appropriate for their child. And so they were not sure if they should do a developmental preschool program and maybe another program, or if they should just do one. How do you figure out when your child, how many hours of preschool your child should have? Because some preschool programs, for example, I know St. Barnabas has a fabulous program that's 2 days a week and it's just a couple hours each day. I know other programs like Leaps and Bounds have a great Montessori school. It's, is it 4 or 5 days a week?
It's
But it's,
5 days a week.
and
Yeah.
it's a half day every
Yep.
day.
Yep.
And that's a mixed classroom with 3 to 5 year olds, just like most of the developmental preschools. And I know some of the other preschools will limit the age of the participants to just
Mhm.
to just the 3 year olds or
Right.
just 4 year olds. So those are kind of a lot of considerations to make in picking out a program. How do you, what would be a good, what would be good consideration for
Okay.
how many
I
hours?
would I would ask, does your child nap? What is
Mm,
their sleeping habits like? If they're big nappers still,
Mhm.
then let them continue with their naps and just keep it in one session. If it's like I said, that separation piece, if the child's never been separated from home and has a really hard time trusting other people and being around other people, then you definitely want to go into it slowly and then build from there.
Maybe
I
more of a
think
quality.
everybody, you know your child,
Mhm.
and you got to listen to the child and just see where they are. And also, um, on looking at both angles of it, you know, it's good to let them grow too, because I know a lot of times it's hard for families to let go and they want to be there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, with especially with the COVID, we can't have parents in the classroom. And I definitely am all about a slow, as much as we can. If they come in, phase out, absolutely. um but it's okay to let your child know you're going to have so much fun, you're going to be okay, because they can see, they mirror, like we mirror our worries, the kids
mhm.
can see that. And it's we want them to be successful. I just want to say this while I'm thinking about it. Another very important thing that we have done, and I know, I mean, I'm sure the other community preschools do the same thing, just depending on the comfort level and how much experience the kids had. I always suggest it's good to have them start their first week or first couple weeks coming in during like the preferred activity, getting to know their peers, and not so formal, like coming in, okay, we're going to go to circle time, this is going to be such an expectation, you're going to have to sit in the circle, and because that could just overwhelm a child. So
Mhm.
come in, and while we're
Mhm.
playing, and get your feet wet, and then just see your surroundings, and then have snack, which is another preferred activity, and then yay, you did it, as opposed to come in, and if they have a hard time, I'll pick them up. Because when kids come in And if they have a hard time, and then it's almost like saying, oh, you didn't make it. It's like, oh, well, we're going to do that. We want them to be successful. So if we want to do it closer till the end of the day where the kid's going to leave and they'll be like, yay, I did it. That is such a more positive experience for phasing your kid into a program that might have a hard time, going into that. I had a couple more things that were in my head that you were talking about. But anyway, hope I answered that other question.
You are so wise, Amy. I just feel so lucky that we got you for this half hour. I know you have to go in about 4 or 5 minutes here, and I just have one more kind of question I wanted to touch on, and that is so I appreciate in a developmental preschool, one thing that is a little bit different from a developmental preschool from a Montessori preschool is that you have access to OT, PT, speech, all these extra services. Have you ever had children in the developmental preschool that are also getting private therapy services, and how did that work out for them?
Yes. In fact, about like 50% of the students that are in the program and get speech also have speech outside or go to OTs, see an OT outside. And it's great. It's great. I mean, I feel like we're just this amazing community with all the support. And, the beauty of it is I've worked with these people on some level, Jessica, or another. And then I knew an OT friend of mine who we worked in the district for many, many years. And when, she moved into her own practice. So I think it's just so nice to just have that umbrella of support and communication, based on the family too. It's also important to keep in mind the child can only take so much. So if there's this service, you got to go to OT here, you got to go here, you got to go, to play group. Oh, we're going to go to social skills group.
Yeah, you got to
There
do
also is a time when enough is enough, and that as a parent, you know when your child's had enough. They reach that. Their brain's just like, I'm done.
I want to say something too. I think it's not just, sometimes parents get overwhelmed too. And parents take care of themselves, right? So an overwhelmed parent is not going to, be as successful as someone who is able to juggle all the parts and all the places that need to happen for their kid, right? Yeah. So making sure that parents aren't overscheduled and overwhelmed too is an important part of making those decisions, right?
Yeah.
Like if you come home from running your kids around all day and getting them to this preschool or that preschool or this meeting and that meeting, and you are grouchy and tired, your body's probably telling you something. You probably need to think about what can you scale back on. And actually next month, our Facebook Live topic, we have 3 amazing parents who have that will come and be on a panel, and they're going to just talk with us about what their children are young adults now. And they're just going to share some wisdom about what their journey has been like and what they've learned along the way about balance. It's important. So
I think that's great. I just have to say I learned from my parents, I mean, the wonderful thing, I feel like each year I grow in a different way because no kid is the same. And so just part of the job, it's so much more than just like teaching preschool. There's just such a bigger piece of it because it's like their babies are going on and then when they go from that program on to kindergarten, that's such a big heavy transition. So there's so many emotions on that, and so I just feel like they're part of my family when they come into that program. And so, I mean, and I'm sure other preschoolers, Leaps and Bounds, they feel the same way. Both of my kids also went to Leaps and Bounds, and we were just like, yeah, it was really hard, when they graduated, just that goodbye, that phase. And I still saved stuff, and I still remember the little graduation that we went through. So, yeah.
It's so fun, though. It's so exciting and fun. And you're right, it is loaded with emotions when your child grows up and graduates from this to that to the next thing. It's just so, those milestones, so fun.
Well,
Mhm.
thank you for having me. I'm so sorry I gotta skip out, but
No, Amy,
I
it was such a treat to
Mhm.
chat with you and pick your brain and hear all the. I mean, how long have you tell us how long you've been a developmental preschool teacher?
I started in 2009 at Ordway.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
just a little
Well,
while.
yeah, just
And,
a little bit.
I taught high school before that for 6 years.
Oh,
Oh
hell,
my goodness.
that's a big.
Okay, what's your
So
favorite?
the ALP, like I was like a life skills teacher
Ah,
at Central Kitsap
Okay.
High School.
oh
And
wow.
then I took all this time off, and then I came back because my kids were going to school at Wilkes. And then I was
Mhm.
like, and then I would sub for like Kathy Hartman, who used to be
Oh
the
yeah.
teacher at Wilkes. And I was like, I want to do that.
Oh, this is so fun.
Mhm.
So it's just, yeah, it was great how I went from secondary to preschool. But I wouldn't change, I
Mhm.
wouldn't trade it. This is the best. I mean, this
Mhm.
age,
So sweet.
birth to
Yes.
6 is the best.
So
I
sweet.
think just because you only see well, you see so much success. Their minds are constantly growing.
They
Mhm.
are.
I'm sure, Alicia, you see that too.
Oh yeah, all the time. And just listening to you talk about, being a high school teacher, you really see what the potential can be for these little ones though as they start out and that they can go and,
Yeah.
be successful all
Oh,
through school. So that's very exciting. Very exciting. And we are so glad, Amy, that you are with us today to share about preschool and just different experiences. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
I
Thank you
know.
both. All right. Good luck
Alrighty.
to families.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
That was so
All
fun.
right. That was so good. I'm so glad Amy was able to join us today.
So we need
Um,
to talk a little bit though. You have so many kids that in Holly Ridge, because you guys focus on birth to 3, you have so
right.
many kids that you need to funnel off in kind of different directions.
Mhm.
So what do you guys do to help with those transitions? Because transitions can be so tricky on kids.
They can be. And part of the individual family service plan process is to have a planned out transition, whether that means the child is going to go on to school district services, or maybe they're going to access private speech therapy and do community preschool. So our family resources coordinators, they're the paperwork keepers. They help in that process, and they set up, we have to have a transition meeting as part of an individual family service plan. And so around 27 months, we start thinking about that transition, and we try to make sure that school districts are aware of what children are coming to them. Of course, we need parent permission to share that information. We just don't send this list of names. We get permission to do that. And anywhere from 9 months, usually not out that far, but it could be 9 months before a child turns 3. Usually it's around the 4-month mark before they're turning 3. A specific transition meeting is planned, and we get together, and the FRC invites, or the family resource coordinator invites the school district representative to come and meet with the family. Prior to COVID, we'd have that meeting at the child's home, or sometimes at our center. Now, because we're in the midst of COVID, we do those meetings via Zoom, but a representative from the school district usually attends. It might be the early childhood coordinator from a particular school district. It might be a teacher, kind of depends on the different representatives they have. And at that meeting, we discuss kind of, what are the family's concerns? What services was the child receiving from Holly Ridge? What progress have they made? How are they doing? And what areas does the family still have concerns in? And then the school district kind of shares what services they offer and kind of what the process is prior to the child turning 3. Because we evaluate children right as they come into the program, and the school districts have to determine eligibility as they're turning 3. So sometimes the criteria is a little different, and a child that maybe has an IFSP has gained enough skills that there's no longer a concern. So they could be exited. They could be exited from services, and we would help a family. Do they want Head Start services? Do they want to look at community preschool? Do they, are there different things in the community that they're interested in enrolling their child in?
Alicia, what age do Head Start services start at? I thought it's 5, but younger?
Nope, it's earlier. So children can start Head Start as early as 3. The priority age is 4. Once they're kindergarten age, they're not eligible any longer, but there's also early Head Start home visiting services that they start almost as early as we do. So oftentimes we will have families. One of the things we often ask families when they first come into our program, are they interested in early Head Start services? And they can get those services as well as services from Holly Ridge.
That is so great. So at 3, representatives on the Head Start program can start working with some families. What kinds of things does the Head Start program work on with families?
So they have, for their 3-year-olds, there may be, they may do some home visiting, or even for kiddos younger than 3, they may do some home visiting services, and they work on developmental skills just like we do. But they also work on family support, so helping families with resources in the community as well. If the child's eligible for a preschool program through Head Start, they could attend their program. Oftentimes, Head Start will have morning sessions and afternoon sessions, and so there's an application process for that, which is pretty easy to do.
I remember, because I used to work at the Head Start program at Woodward Middle School, and I remember that program was really for kindergarten age kids. Maybe they were a little younger. Actually, I don't remember. It's been a while ago. Anyway, and they would feed those kids breakfast in the morning, and they would feed them lunch, and they all had toothbrushes at the Head Start program where they would get practice brushing their teeth, and they went over a lot of life skills in those Head Start programs, and there was a huge emphasis on literacy and books and learning how to get access to books and reading. Are those some of the things that the Head Start programs that come into the house will do when you're like 3?
So they continue, if you get into a classroom, yes, in the classroom setting, that's something that they certainly focus on, and they do provide the breakfast and lunch. Typically like a lunch, and
those are free. It doesn't cost the family extra money.
No, yeah. It's part of the program, and you have to qualify for the program. So there's certain characteristics you have to have. There's low income. If you have an IEP or an IFSP, that helps you with eligibility. Size of family matters. There's a whole process that once an application is put in, that the early Head Start staff look at, and then contact family and kind of get the ball rolling to see, is your child eligible for a program, and go from there.
Great program, especially if you have either a large family, or if you're a single parent, or if you just have a young family, you're just getting started and you don't have the resources necessarily. That seems like what a wonderful support.
Yeah, they really do a wonderful job. I worked as a speech language pathologist in a Head Start program when I worked for the Bremerton School District many years ago. And it was just wonderful to see the information. Every child would have a portfolio where they would have work samples, because they really use a program, and it's escaping me right now, but they really use a program to kind of track development and how a child's doing. And so lots of information and support for families. In their early Head Start program, like I said, they have home visitors, and they also do socialization, during non-COVID times, do a socialization and kind of play group. I think it was like once a month, families would get together. They would
Oh,
have a
fun.
meal together, and there'd be some
Fun.
specific topic that they would talk about. That's not happening, I don't believe, right now, just because of
COVID.
being safe with COVID. But those are some of the things that Head Start would have to offer. And we partner with Head Start a lot. When we have staff in our office, we actually have a Head Start. Someone that works for the OESD Head Start has a space in our office so that we have that ability to connect quickly. But there are different agencies in our county that do Head Start. So Kitsap Community Resources has Head Start programs all over the county, as well as the Olympic Educational Service District. So there's two agencies, but they cover
the entire Kitsap Peninsula.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
and is it only the Kitsap Peninsula that we serve, pretty much?
Those two agencies, well, Kitsap Community Resources for sure, just Kitsap. The Olympic Educational Service District kind of reaches a little further, but I'm not sure about their Head Start program. I know Mason County or North Mason now has access to Head Start. And so
that's fabulous. These are just such great resources for families to know about. Yeah. So Alicia, since you really are this birth to 3 specialist, and so you see kids transitioning off of turning 3, what's your opinion about do all 3-year-olds need to go to preschool? Like what's your opinion about
that? I think, I kind of echo Amy's feelings about, you really need to know your child. Of course, if they're coming out of our program, they continue to have some needs, we want to make sure those needs are addressed in different ways. And sometimes, that those preschool programs are so vitally important, and just accessing those services. So some children too just need speech therapy. So they might go to their local school district, their local elementary school to get those services. They don't necessarily need to go into a school district preschool, but maybe the family's interested in a community preschool. So helping with that. But it really, I think, does depend on your child and knowing your child. And it's great for children to have that experience so that when they're ready to go to kindergarten, that they have experience, separating from mom, being in a group, sharing, doing different activities in a more structured way.
So important. Oh, darn it. This was something I was going to ask Amy about, and then she had to go. But I had one more question about the value of having your child be a peer model in a developmental preschool. And that, I know there's a tremendous amount of research around compassion and empathy training that grows right out of that environment, where when children interact with atypical peers, it helps them develop all of their social emotional skills so that they have greater empathy for people who might be a little different from them.
Right. Then they're not so surprised, right? You see someone that's different. It's like, oh yeah.
Hello, friend.
Yes.
And they're they're less worried about it or concerned about it, because they're like, oh yeah, another person like me, instead of putting barriers there. And I
know various districts are really working on looking at that inclusivity and seeing, what can we do to make sure we have peer models, and, how can we set up programs differently. And even when we have done groups in our facility, we encouraged, and tried to have peer models join us. And oftentimes it might be a sibling of a child, but really, it's amazing. I think just all children being together all the time is a good thing.
Yeah, it is. Children being together is a good thing. I know. And it's so tricky to make that happen sometimes now with the restrictions that are in place with COVID. There were fewer opportunities. So I think, although I am getting the impression that this fall, there will be a lot of schools that will just be back to business as usual and with a mask. And that seems to be the thing. So I think that would be really helpful to most of our families, so that those kids can just get the opportunity to be with peers and learn how to get along with people you like and people you don't like too.
Yes. Yes. That is very important. That is very important.
That's right.
So,
Gotta get along with everyone.
That is
Awesome.
true. So I don't think we have any questions from anyone. So I think we might wrap up for today. Is there anything else, Jessica, that you wanted to mention or talk about? Yeah, I think if we have, if you have any questions about transition from Holly Ridge Services, your Family Resources Coordinator is a great person to connect with. We have great relationships with school districts and work hard to make sure that that transition happens very smoothly, or as smoothly as possible. So thank you. If you joined us today, thank you for joining Facebook Live with Alicia and Jessica. We enjoy doing this so much.
Yeah, and next month we'll be talking with a panel of parents who have gone through the journey of working with a child who has developmental needs and is now a young adult, and kind of what that can look like. And we'll be able to interview them and ask them questions about services and what they did that was helpful and what they did that was not helpful, all of those things. So that will be next month.
All right. Wow. Have a great month, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.